Hello and welcome to another session of Manta Talks. Today we will be talking about how Lineage empowers business because more than ever before, the complexity of data environments and growing technology stacks are defining demand for Lineage that is automated, accurate, and consistent. We'll cover the business value and the improved outcomes you can expect when you implement automated Lineage. Today's speakers are Steward Hodges, who runs the data and analytics practice for Prolifics in the UK and has years of experience running data-related programs. Our next guest today is Kris Brown, Global Head of Professional Services of Information Management, and Alex Fournier, Sales Engineer at Manta, who knows all the technical details of automated Lineage. If you have any questions during this session, please use the Q&A box on the side. We'll make sure to answer all of your questions. And now, please let me hand it over to Alex.
Thank you, Carolina. As introduced, my name is Alexander Fournier. I'm a pre-sales engineer over at Manta. And what I have for you guys today is a quick introduction to data lineage and then two specific use cases on how data lineage helped basically two different disparate projects, data migration and a migration to the cloud. So let me go ahead and move on to an introduction to data lineage. So what is data lineage? It is essentially a map of all the information flows of your data pipelines. So you can think of it as, again, a disparate, disparate technologies coming together and showing how those technologies are mapped to each other. And this can help both keep your data pipelines healthy through better understanding and better management of your dependencies, and help migration to the cloud be much more painless, again, through that dependency understanding and management component. So why is data lineage important? Again, it helps you understand a very complex environment. So traditionally, most data analytics environments consist again of multiple disparate components, whether they're ETL, BI, different data storage layers such as relational or non-relational databases. All of these different components come together to basically enable your business to make data-driven decisions. And now I want to go ahead and introduce our partners, Prolifics, and have them talk through the different value and the different ways that they can extend the Manta platform.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kris Brown. I run the information management practice for Prolifics. And one of the key things about Prolifics, who've been around for over 20 years, initially founded in New York, but we have offices both in Europe and also in India. So we have a global delivery team of about 1,500 people. We partner with many software vendors and we build solutions around those. So one of the incredible value add that we have is the fact that we can work with companies like IBM and Microsoft, but also have companies like Manta who can sit in the middle and connect to each of those individual software components. And we're a global Manta partner, and we're also the first Manta partner within the UK. And so we've done various implementations of the Manta software. We've worked with core Lineage solutions, as well as things like cloud migrations. And we've built custom services leveraging our innovation center to extend the core Manta platform. And so one of the differentiators that Prolifics has is not only can we provide the out-of-the-box solutions with companies like Manta implementing their product, educating companies on using their product, and providing support to their product. We also provide extensions to the Manta product itself. So where Manta connects to third-party technologies out of the box, there's 1,000,001 other different technologies that companies want to connect to. So in that case, we leverage our innovation center using the Open Manta technology to build additional connectivity to the Manta components itself. One example that we've implemented with one of our clients is a Sterling B2B connection that brings in additional metadata into the Manta platform that we can then publish elsewhere. And so one other use case that we've successfully implemented over the course of the last couple of months has been a very large financial services company that have looked to migrate from a traditional on-prem solution where they've had both complex ETL, but also complex custom SQL as part of their core ETL solution. And one of the things they wanted to get to was a version of IBM's new Cloud Pak for Data solution, but also fully understanding their entire end-to-end lineage. And in order to do that, they've had to leverage Manta to ingest the custom SQL because that's something that Manta is very good at. In addition, one of the key things to a successful migration is making sure you don't migrate the stuff you don't need to. Within any migration project, you probably only really need to migrate 80% of the stuff that's there, whether that's ETL processes, whether that's data rules, or some other processes that have just been done for one shot, one time only things that have then been throwaway code that if you don't know better, you migrate that as well. And that's a waste of everybody's time. So Manta can help track those down and make sure that those dependencies that aren't needed aren't migrated. So that's two areas that we've been able to leverage the Manta solution. That's not necessarily the core use case for Manta, but it's a very huge value add, and it can also see the value of the core goal of Manta itself around Lineage, which I'll hand over to Alex and he can talk about that particular scenario.
Great. Thank you, Kris. Let's go ahead and talk through one other use case here. And then I'm going to go ahead and show some lineage diagrams that should illustrate how these use cases were solved using the Manta platform. Okay, so the second use case that I wanted to talk through was maintaining the high development speed and automatically finding dependencies between patches of code. So we had a very similar situation to the use case that Prolifix was discussing earlier. So we had a large financial institution that had a very critical data platform. So this data platform consisted of a series of smaller data warehouses and one aggregated data lake layer. And they were consolidating multiple source systems into this analytics, this analytics layer, so that those data warehouses and that data lake. And they, because of the complexity of the ETL that they were using to pull data from those data sources, they were having to make a series of minor releases that were being published every day. So you can see how this is a very complex environment. It's a very large environment with, again, a couple disparate data sources upstream. So what Manta did was they helped from the dependency management standpoint by helping understand, again, like all of those ETL processes, what, how those processes were relying on one another to pull data into that data warehouse layer. And this ultimately ended with them having healthier infrastructure. Their data pipelines, received statistically less outages, and they were able to resolve those outages in a quicker time period than they were prior to implementing Manta. So let me go ahead and shift to a lineage diagram to actually demonstrate both of these use cases.
Alex, Stuart here. While you're bringing that up, could you just tell us what the point at which the customer realized that the approach they were taking needed to be improved, at which point they needed to automate something they were doing in a much more manual basis?
Yeah, that's a great question, Stuart. So this particular customer had a series of business intelligence reports that they were relying on to make critical and key business decisions. So again, this customer really was trying to take more of a data-driven approach to any decision that they were making. And they were seeing very large outages from that reporting perspective. And that became something that, was impacting the business and something that they saw as, needing to address. So that's what ultimately led them to adopt Manta, because of, again, all of those upstream outages that were causing, that were impacting the end, reports that the business was developing and was using to make those decisions.
Right. So that lack of lineage was very visible to the business at that point.
Yep, absolutely.
Right. Thank you.
So let me go ahead and share my screen here with some lineage diagrams. So what I'm going to show you first here is we're taking a look at the viewer web application. So this is a web application that any end user is going to be coming out to actually view their data lineage. So on the left here, this is what I want to draw your attention to. Under this repository tab, you can see a number of technologies nested within it. So you can see, for example, Oracle, Postgres, Netezza, Hive. So those represent, both legacy and big data relational data sources. You can see things like SSIS, data stage. These represent ETL tools. You can see things such as SSRS, which, would represent a BI component. So what Manta has gone and done is it's extracted metadata for all of these sources and aggregated it within this viewer web application. And what we're going to see here with the lineage diagram is how Manta connects all of these disparate data sources or components within your analytics environment. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to pull in an SSRS report titled Customers. And what I really want to highlight here is that this lineage diagram that we're about to view, it's highly parameterized and parameter driven. So what I'm essentially doing is asking Manta to show me, this lineage diagram from a very high level view or a very low level of detail. I want to see bidirectional lineage, and I don't want to apply any filters. So let's go ahead and visualize it and see what it looks like. So once this diagram renders here, the main thing that I want to point out is all of the individual components and how they're being connected by Manta. So I can see, if I right click here, this SSRS report, I can see the direct data source for this report. It's a data warehouse. That's an MS SQL technology. I can see that there's an IFPC ETL flow upstream from that data warehousing layer. Some more SSIS jobs. So it looks like kind of some disparate ETL technology sitting in the middle here. And then some, again, an Oracle technology here. So this is a pretty simple data lineage diagram, very easy for any sort of end user to consume and understand, again, which components are involved in getting data to this customer's report. But something I really want to highlight is, the dependency aspect of this diagram, right? So, for example, this data warehouse is dependent on all of these upstream ETL jobs to get data into it. This customer's report is dependent on this data warehouse, all of the upstream ETL jobs, and the data sources. And so all of these components are typically, they're owned by different teams in an organization. It could be DBAs, it could be data engineers, analysts. So having this high level aggregated view of everything and having it exportable to different formats, whether it's, a data dump for some quick data mining, whether it's, an image file, a permalink, or through a REST API or a lineage diagram, we provide a lot of different ways to consume and to share this information. What I want to go ahead and do next is drill down to a higher level of detail. So we're going to take a look at this lineage diagram from a medium level of detail to get to some of the more technical complexities. So you can see that initial data lineage diagram got much more complex when we drilled down into it. You can see, if I go ahead and scroll all the way to the right, we're going to be able to see that that report that's the furthest most element downstream in the sequence. So again, we can see this customer's report here. This was that initial item that we pulled in to be the kind of center point of the data lineage. So I'm able to see now all of the different components that comprise this report, and I'm able to see how those components map to other components upstream. And then if I wanted to get an even more technical and granular diagram, I'd be able to do that. So what I'm going to do is finally go ahead and drill down to the highest level of detail. And what we should see now is column or field level lineage. So again, I'm able to click on any sort of field or column in this customers report and see how this field actually maps to related fields upstream. So I can see that this full name field in our customers report is being leveraged from a full name column in our data warehouse in a rep client table. I'm able to see, the MS SQL, again, right clicking, seeing it's an MS SQL box here. I'm able to see these two MS SQL stored procedures. One's called report client, one's called hist party. Again, clicking on that full name field, I'm actually able to see how this full name field maps to two disparate fields upstream from that, which shows me that there's some sort of transformation occurring to create that field. I'm actually able to see that transformation. So Manta will go ahead and parse basically any underlying code and pull out logic specific to a field. So in this particular instance, there is a first name and last name field that's creating this full name field. So again, you can think of these two fields as being dependencies for this full name field. And basically that's the value that Manta is bringing, right? Is this dependency management aspect of it, this layer of understanding that trying to aggregate all of these different components manually, just you wouldn't be able to capture effectively, at least from my perspective. So yeah, that's
Alex, it's Stewart here. I totally agree with that. I think we've all in integration projects, in migration projects, we've all been stuck where we're trying to unpick the spaghetti, the flow of data around the specific piece of integration, and actually being able to click on this on any of these things and see the impact analysis effectively where it's going upstream and downstream. It's really, really powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. This is something that a lot of our customers get a lot of value out of Manta, is again this dependency management aspect of it. So typically these ETL pipelines are very complex. There's very complex code going on. If it's a SQL pipeline, there could be any number of stored procedures involved. Those stored procedures can be dependent on one another, so it can be very tightly interwoven, and Manta can help make some sense of those complex webs of dependencies. So yeah, absolutely, I agree with you. What I want to show next is another lineage diagram. So this one would be more related to the migration use case that we were looking at earlier. But what I want to show you is two tables. One would be in a cloud technology. So in this particular example, I'm going to pull in Snowflake. So I search for rep client, and I'm just quickly scanning through the returned results to find the Snowflake rep client table, which I just found. So I'm going to go ahead and pull that in here. And then what I also want to do is look for this rep client table in a Oracle technology to kind of represent what this table would look like in a more legacy relational database. So let's imagine a situation where we're maybe a data engineer or we're a data architect, and we're in charge of basically migrating this rep client table from Oracle to Snowflake. So generally what we see is businesses want during any sort of technology migration for the new object to as closely represent the legacy object as possible. So like a true lift and shift, right? So what I'm going to do here is just visualize these two diagrams, and we're going to see what they look like. So on the top here in the red, this is going to be the rep client table represented. Right, yep, this is it right here. So this is the rep client table represented in Oracle technology. So you can imagine this would be, again, the legacy table that we're looking to shift over to Snowflake. And then on the bottom diagram here, we're able to see Snowflake. So right-clicking, seeing it's Snowflake. And we're able to see that same rep client table, and we're able to see all of the dependencies that have been migrated to Snowflake. And just right off the bat, you can see that these data lineage diagrams are definitely different. So there would need to be more effort that would need to take place during this migration to accurately basically migrate the logic that's occurring in this data pipeline to the Snowflake pipeline. So you can see that there's a couple, it looks like Oracle stored procedures or packages that might be missing. You can see that there's a couple of different table sources further upstream that would be missing. So all of these tables haven't been properly migrated. So you can imagine, again, just looking at this very simple example, like how Manta can be helpful in those migration situations for making sure and verifying both the accuracy of your migration, the current status of your migration, and things of that nature. But those are the two lineage diagrams that I really wanted to demonstrate for you today. I'm going to go ahead and shift back to the PowerPoint.
Alex, just one question that when you had that was been asked, which is what's a good start point for Lineage? I mean, how do you typically get going on these? And I was wondering whether you might be able to just give us a quick description of the best approach for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me go ahead and draw your attention back to the viewer web application here. So it's really going to be any object of basically any object that you want to investigate. So it depends on your use case, Stewart. So if I wanted to, for example, drag in this rep client table, this is going to be the table of interest that I want to take a look at. It's going to basically, that lineage diagram is going to be driven off of these visualization parameters. So for example, if I wanted to see any sort of upstream lineage, I'd be able to select this backwards directional parameter, and I'd be able to see any upstream. If I wanted to see this lineage on a high level of detail, I'd be able to click on this detail parameter and select high. So it's really, again, driven by your needs, but typically what we'll see is customers either starting from one of the very ends of a lineage diagram, whether it's a data source or a data consumer. So a data source could be like a source system, such as a relational database or some sort of application code furthest most upstream, or a report that the business is consuming all the way downstream. Hopefully that answers your question, Stewart.
Yeah, thank you. So Alex, I've been asked another question about the color coding on the lineage diagrams. Do they mean anything? Have they got relevance, and are you able to change them?
Yeah, that's a great question, Stewart. So there's absolutely relevance behind the color coding. So there's a couple of different options we have in terms of defining these color codes. So in this particular example, it's color coded by resource. So you can see Oracle is color coded red. You can see in this particular example, SSIS would be color coded green, MS SQL green, and IFPC blue. This is all customizable, so you can change these color coding as well from an administration perspective. You're also able to directly in the UI here define perhaps a different rule that you want to see these objects be grouped by. So in this particular example, anything that's ETL is considered blue. Anything that's a database or a data storage layer is considered purple. Or a BI technology would be kind of this orangish hue. And really what I want to point out here is we try to make the lineage as consumable as possible for any sort of end user. So we give them, again, as many options to consume the lineage in a fashion that they see as being helpful from a UI perspective.
Great, that's a great answer, Alex. And a sort of a follow-on question from that is really about the type of personas who typically use Manta. What sort of users do you have? Technical, non-technical? Who comes in and typically gets the most value from Manta?
Yeah, that's a great question. So definitely both technical and non-technical users. Essentially anybody that's involved in a data product, right? So whether that's the front of house or the back of house, staff members, that could include, data engineers, data architects, basically any of the cooks, right? That's the way I like to think of it. Or it could be more of the business presentation layer. So C-suite, it can be, data analysts, data scientists, more of the front of the house staff, right? The people actually delivering the data or consuming the data. So I always kind of like to think about it in kind of that restaurant allegory there, but
yeah.
Hopefully that gives you some insight.
Yeah, thanks, Alex.
Yep, no problem.
Okay, so thank you very much, Alex, Kris, and Stewart, for your valuable input. So basically what was covered here are the main use cases we see our customers are using Lineage for. But besides that, there are many more ways how to utilize Lineage to ease your work. If you want to know more, please visit prolifics.com and getmanta.com website. Thank you and have a lovely day.